This is NE8. We bring to you an exclusive talk with Dr. Prakritish Bora. He is the Director Excel Care Hospital, Guwahati, also MD Pediatrics, PG Critical Care, and he is also Head of Department Pediatrics and Neonatology of the Excel Care Hospitals. He's a specialist in critical care. Today we will be discussing about coping the COVID-19 for children. And Dr. Bora, I may add, is also a very well-known, renowned, reputed child specialist who is practicing in Guwahati.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and it's a real pleasure, for for me that channel from Nagaland is hosting me. Now, when I come to children, uh, so most of the viral infections, so be it influenza, be it Coxsackie virus, be it adenovirus, all the viral infections, they cause more illnesses in the extreme of ages, that is more than 60 years and less than usually 14 years, but mostly it is 5 years, less than 5 years. But COVID is showing an exception in this regard. COVID is showing that, okay, elderly people it is affecting mostly, and it is killing also most people who are more than 60 years. But with children, the infectivity is lesser compared to other viral infections. But if a child who is below 1 year gets infected, then of course the chances of seriousness or chances of mortality goes high or increases. So that is the reason if a child is below 6 years, I think parents should be careful so that their child do not end up with COVID-19. Uh, Now, when we talk about coping, so coping with COVID-19 again comes in two parts. The first part being the precautions that we need to take against COVID-19 so that it doesn't come to us. And the second part is because we do not have medication for this virus, so we need to boost up our immunity, our own body's fighting capacity. So even if it infects our children or even for that matter adults, our immunity should be strong enough so that we can fight this virus and do not let it bug us down. So uh, most of the media like yours and television and so many other media houses are already showing how to prevent COVID-19. But I would again re-emphasize on certain important points. Again, when I go back and in the retrospect, there were a lot of confusions about wearing a mask and whether one should be wearing or not. Then initially the government recommendation was if normal people should not wear a mask because the chances of contamination with the mask is more, which I still feel uh, is there. Because when you are wearing a mask, the normal tendency is that since your mouth is blocked, you cannot breathe properly, and the mask has to be tight enough. If it is a loose mask, then it doesn't serve the purpose. So if you're wearing a mask, it is tight, and if you are there for maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, you feel suffocated, and your face becomes itchy. So you tend to touch your face, and you tend to adjust your mask. And the mask being a protective gear on your face. So when you are breathing, all the dust, all the viruses, all the bacteria will come to the front of the mask. So if you're touching the mask, then the bacteria, viruses which are invisible will come to your fingers. And if you forget to wash your hands before touching your body, then you will end up infecting others as well as yourself. So one has to be very careful while donning a mask. Actually, the government that now has recommended the mask for people is more for others actually. Suppose I am wearing a mask, it is not actually for me, but it is for other people so that I do not infect other people. So that is one thing I have to tell you. So when we come back to how to protect yourself from COVID-19, the first thing is, of course, the we have to know the mode of mechanism. I mean, mode of transfer, how the virus gets transferred to one person from one person to another person. So the transfer is by so-called droplet infection. Again, because COVID-19 is a very new disease, so there is a lot of scientific evidence, a lot of scientific work which is going on now. So a lot of insights are coming every day. A lot of things are also changing. What we believed some time back is now changing. So initially, it was thought that it cannot come by air, but now the concept has changed, and there are a lot of other ways COVID can manifest. Like you can have gastrointestinal symptoms, some symptoms in your stomach, tummy. You may have tummy upset, but actually the cause is COVID-19. So there are a lot of new things coming up. So the basic mode of transmission of COVID-19 is by droplets. When I'm talking now, so there are microscopic droplets coming out of my mouth, and it can travel to a distance of about 3 feet or 1 meter. So if a person is close to me, then those droplets will deposit on him and they will infect. And the closer the person is, the load of the virus that I'll throw out will be higher. So that is the reason health professional like me, when I see a patient from a close distance, I check his mouth, I check his eyes, then I come close to that person. So if that person is breathing on me, if that person coughs on me, then I'll get a huge burden of virus. So that is the reason health professionals all over the world are getting more infected than normal people, because we are caring for such patients. So keeping your hands clean becomes the foremost thing to avoid um, this COVID-19. And when it comes to children, they like to play, they like to touch here and there, especially children who are below 5 years. They are very difficult to control. So my advice to the parents will be that children at this age, the best way to teach them is to tell them by example. So always, wash your hands while your child is nearby you, before eating, before touching your body, or all these things should be constantly told to them and also perform in front of them. So if you are washing hands every time, then your child also sees and learns from you. So that way, the chances of a child contaminating himself will become less and less and less. So, and not touching your facial region becomes another important part of preventing COVID-19. So your child should be taught about that. That in the morning, take a bath, put moisturizing cream on your face, and then do not touch your face unless you have washed your hands again. Suppose you feel itchy, your eyes are itching, then first wash your hands, then itch. Do not itch otherwise. Or what you can do is you can carry a handkerchief in your pocket or a tissue, and if you have to itch, then itch with the handkerchief or the tissue, and then dispose it. So a tissue is better because it is disposable. So give your children now when the schools open, that is the time the problem will start, because there will be so many kids coming together and they might forget things. So our teachers will have to be very vigilant, and we have to provide the children with tissues which are disposable, so that if they have to touch their face, they can touch with the tissue and throw it out, not keep it. So these are certain small things that we have to teach our children. And about keeping distance, and children like to clamp together, come together, touch each other, they like to tease each other, play together. So suddenly this has come that you have to keep apart, keep distance from each other. So I do not know how one is going to maintain this in school. So besides putting the chairs and tables apart, what else they can do in the school? So that will be that has to be seen. But again, we have to inculcate this at home, that maintain distance, especially from the elders. If there is people who are grandfathers, grandmothers, you have to teach them that do not go near them. Keep at least 2 meters. Don't say it is 1 meter. I would rather say it is 2 meters. Keep at least 2 meters distance from your elders. For parents, for mother and father, I don't think you can avoid contact with your children. So that has to be maintained. At least from others, you have to teach them how to maintain distance from others. Then sneezing and coughing etiquettes. Always ask them to sneeze or cough using your elbow or a tissue. The tissue can be used and disposed, or you can use your elbow to cough or sneeze. This way, the spread of the virus will be contained. Now, when I come to the second part, that is boosting up your immunity, uh, two things are required. One is good physical activity. Now, children, I come across a lot of children, especially in the little older age, who have become very obese. I mean, they put on so much of weight because of their diet habit. They eat a lot of junk food, chicken, and all that. So they put on a lot of weight. So controlling one's weight is very, very important. Maintaining a certain amount of weight is good. Again, overweight is bad. Same time, underweight also is bad. So one has to be fed with good nutritious diet so that the average weight is maintained. And having a lot of activity during the day is important. Now, because we are under lockdown, of course now it is open, but still we cannot go to public places like parks and all. So children have very limited resource to play. But then slowly, since the government is opening up, I'm sure the playgrounds will be open now shortly. So then this problem of children's play will be over. So physical activity is important thing, 50%, and 50% is a good nutritious diet. So for any viral infection, there are certain vitamins and minerals which are very, very important, and they play a crucial role in preventing infections. Things like vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin B6, vitamin B9, then selenium, magnesium, phosphorus. So I'll give you a certain food items which can be daily used for a child and for all the members actually, not only children, because food, good nutritious diet remains same for children as well as for adults. So one should now at this point make sure you eat enough amount of citrus fruits or food. Now, most of the fruits and vegetables will contain some amount of vitamin C, but the major ones that we can eat on a regular basis are lime, sweet lime, then of course oranges, then lemon. These are commonly available with us. So these are certain foods that we can use. I would recommend eating food rather than taking supplements. So then we have a thing called broccoli, vegetable called broccoli, which is again very high in vitamin C and a lot of other vitamins. Then the red bell pepper that we mostly get those green pepper, but we also come across the red bell ones. Uh,
Chili.
so chili, right? So that contains a lot of immunity boosting elements. Then on a regular basis, one should be eating garlic and ginger. Garlic and ginger both contains a lot of properties which not only boosts up your immunity, it also helps control your blood pressure, uh, and uh, uh, and keeps you away from a lot of inflammation in the body. Like ginger can soothe your throat. If you have a sore throat, you can have ginger and or gargle with ginger water. Then all the leafy vegetables are good, but the which stands out, one vegetable stands out, that is spinach. Spinach contains a lot of immunity boosting capacity or power. So spinach, if it is feasible, should be taken every day in our diet. Then another important food which mostly South Indians eat every day or North Indians eat, and but on eastern part of India we are little away from that food. It is yogurt, dahi. But I'm not talking about flavored dahi. We get a strawberry flavor, mango flavor. That is not what I'm talking about, because that contains a lot of sugar. So you end up consuming a lot of carbohydrate, which may impact with your weight. So homemade dahi or curd or yogurt should be given. You can add a spoon of honey if you like it to be sweet, or add some fruit into it. And one should eat yogurt every day, on a regular basis. And that's all good, but I would say almonds are the best in terms of getting sufficient minerals. Almonds are quite good. Then other nuts are also good, but then one should be having at least a couple of almonds every day. Then another other vegetables that we can have are tomato juice also, and we can have carrot juice. We can also mix carrot, beetroot juice. All these are very good in in terms of nutrition. Then in seeds, we nowadays we get a lot of seeds like flax seeds. All those seeds are good, but then one can eat sunflower seeds sufficiently because these have certain immunity booster elements which will prevent you from having viral infections. Then Indian food, one food is good which is regularly used in our kitchen, that is turmeric. Turmeric is very high in curcumin, one element called curcumin, which is helpful in boosting up our immunity. Then one can have tea, although most literature would say green tea is good, but since green tea is not easily available, we can also have red tea, which is easily available in Assam, Nagaland. We should have tea as much as possible now. And then one should have ripe papaya, because ripe papaya has two, three important things. It contains one enzyme called papain, which is very good for your digestive system. And then it has sufficient vitamin C, vitamin A, and other minerals also, phosphorus, calcium. Then one should have one or two pieces of chicken every day because it contains vitamin B6, and it also has proteins. And also some, if possible, some river fishes. We do not get sea fishes. Sea fishes are better, but at least fish should be taken. But one should be taking it like you take in Nagaland, boiled, mostly boiled food you take, which is very, very good. Frying is not good because you end up consuming a lot of oil. So this is in a nutshell about food items that you can consume on a regular basis to help boost up your immunity. So these are the two aspects I wanted to cover and tell the parents how to cope with COVID-19. This is about physical part that I talked. Now mentally, I have come across a lot of people so scared with COVID-19 that they have stopped going anywhere. They have stopped their daily life. They have stopped work. Everything has stopped for them. They're so scared that they'll get COVID-19. Now, see, if you look at COVID-19, why is it causing havoc? Because of its ability to infect very fast, or it can spread so hugely or fastly. So that is the reason more people are getting infected every day, even in India now. But if you look at the mortality, how many people are actually dying from COVID? It is a very small number. In my opinion, if a healthy person gets COVID, the chances of dying will be only about 0.1 to 0.5 to 1%. It's a very small number. Now, the projection is that India will reach its peak in July, August. The maximum number of cases will come out, and mostly 80% of the cases will be asymptomatic. So I think even what the government has planned now, because they are opening up from today. From today is the 8th. Today is 8th, I think. So from today they are opening up almost everything. So which means even government is trying to relax things so that we have more and more of asymptomatic cases, and the herd immunity develops in the society. So I want to explain. Do I have time to explain?
Yeah, you go ahead, please.
Yeah. I would like to explain what herd immunity is. Herd immunity is basically, say, there are about 100 people in a particular location. Say, if there is no immune person here, there is no person who has immunity here. Immunity basically means, suppose I get measles today, then my body will develop certain antibodies against measles. So I recover from measles. Then second time, even if I get measles virus, I will not get the disease because I have antibody in my body. So that is what antibodies are. So now there are 100 people in a particular area, and none of have them COVID-19. So when COVID-19 infects one person, that will spread very rapidly to other people if we are not maintaining all the precautions. But suppose today, out of the 100 people, 50 people have the disease and they have recovered. So these 50 people have antibody in themselves. So next time COVID comes again, what will happen will be, if COVID comes to this person who has already immunity developed in his body, he will not be able to infect this person. So in return, what he does is he blocks the other people from getting infected. So the severity of the disease will be less. What happened with polio was also that only. Why did we, why did government give polio to all the children? So that they develop immunity and protects. Suppose some people, babies have not been given immunization, even those will be protected by this immune children. So basically herd immunity means immunity in the society, which will help to prevent infection going to some person who does not have the immunity. But at the same time, we should not be worried about getting COVID-19, because if COVID-19 comes to a healthy person, it cannot do anything. And we have to be mentally strong. That mental balance we should not lose. Any disease, if you have a strong positive mental frame, then you can do better with the disease than a person who is scared, afraid, his mental ability is not strong, then you cannot fight the disease so well. So the third thing that I want to emphasize is having a good mental frame of mind. So one should be happy and not scared about COVID-19 so much.
So regarding the diet, there are some cases where some children are allergic to dry fruits. So how do you, treat this type of problem?
See, allergies are different. See, children who are allergic to nuts are mostly allergic to peanuts. Peanuts, the common badam, small one. And but it is less in India. As a practitioner, I can tell you it is not so common in India. It is mostly seen in places like Israel. Israel is a country where most people cannot eat peanuts. They are allergic to it. They get breathing difficulty. They get rashes all over their body. So, but then we have certain children like who has severe atopic dermatitis, a condition in the skin where your skin becomes red and you have patches and then skin comes off. So it's a very bad condition of skin. So where these children has to avoid nuts. So see, for this kind of children, there is no option. So since they are allergic to nuts, we have to avoid nuts. But then you have the other options like citrus fruits, spinach, ginger, garlic, turmeric, the things that we regularly eat, poultry, chicken, I mean. So all this can be taken in place of the other things. See, basically the almonds or nuts, what they give to you mostly is some oils, omega-3 oils and fatty oils, which are good to your body, and then minerals like magnesium, selenium. All those minerals are high quantity in the nuts. But you have the other options where you will get this minerals also, like in papaya or in green tea or in turmeric. You get this in plenty. You can also have shellfish. Shellfish is a very good source for minerals. But shellfishes are difficult to get in places like ours. But you get lobsters. We get crab. Crab, I think even Assam, Nagaland people eat in the villages quite a lot. But in a city like Guwahati, we do not get crab so much. So crab is a good fish, that one can eat.
Doctor, coming back to COVID for children,
yeah.
What could be the first symptoms? Let's say for somebody below 5 years. I mean, the age-wise, are children below 5, below 10 more vulnerable? And what happens? What are the first symptoms? And whether it is life-threatening?
So we have one study from AIMS, which came out recently, telling us the symptoms, what kind of symptoms mostly are seen in children. I'll tell you one by one. But before that, let me tell you the categories. First is below 1 year, which we call as infant. So these children are most vulnerable. If they get the disease, the severity will be more, chances of dying will be more. Then we have 1 to 3 years, that is the toddler period. So these are again vulnerable, but less vulnerable than 1 year. So we have to be careful because these children start to move and you cannot teach them this basic science about distancing, hand washing. All these will be very difficult with these children. But then they do not need to go out, children below 3 years. So it is best to keep these children inside the house. And anybody who comes from outside should immediately take a bath, keep his clothes outside or wash it, and only after that one should take these children. I mean, I'm talking about parents. So always make sure one is clean before you are holding a child who is below 3 years. Then you have the category of 3 to 6 years. So this is the area where children are not getting infected too much. They are not getting infected too much. So, and even if they are getting infected, they are mostly asymptomatic. They do not get symptoms, and only 20% will have very mild disease, and there is no mortality reported in this age group from all over the world. And more than 6 years again comes almost like adolescence category. So these children are quite resistant to this virus. So even if they get, one need not worry about these children. But symptoms, what symptoms children will mostly get? So we are always doing thermal screening now. Any place you go, people will check your temperature. But it is shown in literature that only 41 or 43% children are getting fever. It is so small, which means out of 100 children, if 100 children are infected with COVID-19, only 41 or 41 to 43 children will get fever. Rest 59 children will not get fever. Then coughing will be seen in about again 40-50% children. Then fatigue and body ache, body pain, fatigue, malaise is seen in quite a lot of people. Then you have nausea, the tendency of loss of appetite is there. One thing which stands out in COVID is not having too much of nasal symptoms. Most viral infection in children will lead to running nose, sneezing, and too much of irritation in the nose. So these nose symptoms are not there. But instead, you have more of throat symptoms. You may get irritation in the throat. One dry cough is there. So most people with COVID-19 are being given a cough suppressant or a cough medicine so that the cough is reduced. So then, of course, the other symptoms like pneumonia, then upset of the tummy, you might get diarrhea. So these are lesser known symptoms of COVID-19. They are not so common. Now we have some reports which are coming up mainly from the Western countries like UK, that children can also get heart disease because of COVID-19. There is one disease called Kawasaki disease, which affects the arteries in the heart. That Kawasaki disease is being seen in children with COVID-19 infection. So these are new findings that we have come across. And in adults, it is seen that people are even getting stroke, brain stroke, because of COVID-19. So these are newer discoveries or newer manifestations of COVID-19, which many people do not know. But then for these rare manifestations, one need not worry. So mostly it is a common flu-like disease, which is seen in for a person. Suppose if you have to know it in nutshell, what is COVID-19? It is a simple flu-like illness, which will not have too much of nose symptoms. Suppose you have fever, you have cough, but you do not have too much of running nose, then one should be worried that it might be COVID for a child or for an adult also. And there are other symptoms like loss of taste, loss of smell. These are mostly seen in adults. In about 30%, 20%, 30% people will even experience this loss of taste and loss of smell sensation. So I think
in case of children, doctor, supposing you suspect that the child may be having COVID, what should be the first step to take? I mean, advice.
Now government has opened up testing facilities in private sector also. In Guwahati, at least we have one laboratory who is doing COVID testing. So you have strong suspicion of COVID-19, then one should in Nagaland, I don't know what the protocol is, but in Guwahati, one has to get screened for COVID-19 in a COVID-19 hospital, we have a couple of hospitals here which have been designated for COVID-19 patients. So, which are typical symptom of COVID, strong suspicion of COVID, one should go to the COVID hospital, get himself screened. The doctor there, if he feels, if the person fits into the criteria of COVID-19, then he will get a RT-PCR test done,
I'm
which
talking
will
about,
confirm the disease.
children. Supposing you suspect a child
Yeah.
below 3,
Yeah.
below 1.
The same thing will apply. That is what in Assam, what is happening is, if I suspect that this child might have COVID-19, there are many occasions where I suspected children to have COVID-19. So since that time we did not have testing facility in the private sector, now I have the facility. So since we did not have the testing facility, most of the time we used to send them to COVID hospitals. Those are government hospitals, and get them tested. If they come negative, then we call them back and follow up in our hospital. Suppose they test positive, then they remain, depending on how the situation is, either home quarantine or in the hospital. I think it is mostly in
What
the
is the
hospital that.
treatment that you normally would give advice if at all somebody is positive, a child?
Yeah, if a child is positive, I'll see what is the grade of infection. If the child is only having little bit of fever, mild cough, then I would not worry. But still, I would like to, if the child is below 5 years, I would like to keep him in the hospital, because if you go to home, then the parents might miss some danger signals. So I would like to keep the child in the hospital, and we'll just give him paracetamol for fever and lot of fluids to drink, so that you keep your hydration on. I mean, you should be well hydrated, because COVID-19 is one disease where if your body doesn't have enough fluid, the seriousness will go up. So there should be enough fluid in your body. So I'll give enough sufficient fluid orally. Then I'll give a cough syrup if there is cough. And now there are two medications that are being used. Probably I'll use those medications also. One is azithromycin, the second one being hydroxychloroquine, ACQ. So these are two medications maybe I'll start using in the children, so that they do not develop serious symptoms. Now, if I have a child who has pneumonia, or who is serious, who has serious illness because of COVID-19, so those children will definitely require hospitalization, and especially in the ICU. And we will check his oxygen level continuously, his blood pressure, and his all the vital parameters. Suppose he requires oxygen, we'll administer early oxygen. Early oxygen is always important. We call this saturation, or SpO2. That SpO2 should not fall below 94%. It has to be more than 94%, so that sufficient oxygen is provided. I'll provide to the child. And if required, if the pneumonia is too bad, then we have to do early intubation and ventilation. We should not wait for the pneumonia to go very bad and then ventilate. So ventilation may be required, but these are again advanced treatment. Now there are newer modalities coming up, something like plasma therapy. So what is done here is, from infected blood from infected people are taken, and the fluid part of the blood is separated, and that is kept. So this can be administered to people with COVID, severe form of COVID. Then we have IVIG, immunoglobulin, which can be used for serious illnesses. But again, these are drugs or medicines which have been recently studied. They are not commonly used. And we also have monoclonal antibodies coming up now. So there are a lot of things which have come up recently. But again, since Assam is still not experiencing the condition that Mumbai is experiencing. So again, our experience is less in using all these medications, or what will we do when we get a serious patient? Only time will tell. But the knowledge is there that if we are against a wall, then we have these options to use. Suppose a child becomes very sick, then we definitely have all these means to tackle this disease.
For children, doctor, you treatment of serious and minor cases it follows the same procedure.
Yeah, same procedure. As I divided the children into two parts.
Mhm.
One is with minor symptoms, one with serious symptoms. So minor symptoms will only need paracetamol, fluid, cough syrup, and probably azithromycin and hydroxychloroquine. Even this may be actually avoided in children who are otherwise well and only has fever for a day or two. These medications can be avoided. I mean, I'm talking about hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin can be avoided. Yeah, but that will depend on case to case basis, because when I see a child, I know that this child looks well, and I can decide that let us not give him too much of medication, because even the medications are harmful, especially hydroxychloroquine can lead to some problems in your heart. So that is the reason I'll be careful in using this medication in children quickly.
What about, you were saying about some symptoms that are now being identified, like loose motion, could be because of COVID. So in such cases, what are the, besides having loose motion, frequency, what sort of treatment can be taken? Or what type of food should be avoided?
See, see, I am talking from the literature point of view, because I have not personally seen a child who presented to me with loose motion and vomiting where I suspected COVID-19 till now, as of date. So if a child now comes to me from a place which is not a red zone, or where there are not many cases in Assam, and or he is not coming from a containment zone, he is coming from a normal place, then I will not suspect COVID in this child. But suppose a person comes from a place where there is high incidence, or which is a containment zone. Recently, Fancy Bazaar was a containment zone in Guwahati. Then Chanmari was one area of Chanmari was a containment zone. Suppose I get a child from this area, then definitely with diarrhea and vomiting, I'll suspect COVID, and I'll get him tested. But management will remain the same. Management for diarrhea, adequate hydration; for vomiting, anti-vomiting medications like domperidone or ondansetron. And if he has fever, then medicine for fever. So there will be nothing special for this. Normal management of diarrhea will continue.
So these children below 1 year, they are most vulnerable and risk at higher risk than the other.
High risk, yes.
Okay. So yes. Now, what are the cases in Assam among children who are having positive, because of COVID?
Children, I don't think we have any case with who is a child as of now. Not to my knowledge. So children that way are safe, because see, one good part about children is that they do not travel. So, and most of the cases that we are recently having are migrants. I mean, people who are coming from outside and bringing the infection here and infecting other people. So we do not have children in that age. So luckily, the cases amongst children has not been detected so far.
It was nice talking to you. Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, and take care, and wishing good health to your family and
okay. Everybody. Thank you. Same to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.